Welcome everybody from the Sparx Systems YouTube channel. My name's Scott and I'm joined by Stephen, and we're continuing to look at our urban parking system that's been modelled in Sparx Systems Enterprise Architect. And as we've evolved the model over time, at this point in time we're looking at decision modelling. And this time we're going to look at decision modeling with multiple inputs to see how that added complexity is handled and managed by Enterprise Architect. So welcome, Stephen. How are you today?
Very well, thank you, Scott, and thank you for the introduction. Indeed, we are going to be looking at multiple inputs to our decisions. We want to do this in increments and build it up slowly and steadily. So let's have a look at what we always do, which is to set our perspective up in the top right-hand corner. This sets the focus of our work. And remember, we could be performing a number of different roles during a day, a week, or a month, or even a year. And we can change our perspective, and the tool will change its focus onto the perspective that we've chosen. So I've been doing some code engineering earlier today. I'm going to set the focus on decision modeling. So it's in the requirements perspective set, and it's called decision modeling. And remember, as Scott, you asked in a previous video, it's not something that the people at Sparx or Enterprise Architect have made up. It is part of the decision model and notation language, which is universally available. So let's click on that perspective, and we've been given, as always, a builder page with a number of patterns on it, and we've got starter patterns and things that we can look at. As always, I encourage you, once you've seen things from first principles, to go back and get some of the incredible productivity gains that are offered to you by using these patterns. Simply choose a pattern, click on Create Model, and it injects all of the elements into your model. But let's close that and start from first principles. So over to our project browser and looking at the organization of our models. Now, we did have a previous video on a introduction to decision models, and we've got a package there. I noticed that that package is a little bit higher in the project browser than I want it to be. Certainly think it should be below product management and strategy, and probably below business models, and even below requirements models, even though you might be tempted to put it inside the requirements model, and no harm done there. It is a type of requirements diagram. But let's open this up and let's have a brief look at our previous video, motorist membership level 1 input. So with one input there. And if I look at that diagram, you can see that we had this membership tier, and the idea was that we had a decision table that was going to allow us to decide, based on someone's spending score, what level of membership they should have to the loyalty club. And we've got levels platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. And we've got a simple relationship there between the spending score and that tier. So we're going to expand this model. Rather than just doing it on this model and starting, what I'm going to show you is the ability in Enterprise Architect to be able to copy whole blocks of elements and packages. So if I close this diagram for the moment, and I'll close this expression editor as well, and I right mouse click on this package, and I say copy. Now, there's a few different options there with copy: as simple reference, full structure for duplication, documentation, bookmark, node path to clipboard, node GUID. The one I want is full structure for duplication. So, give me the whole shebang, give me everything that's in there, and that's what I want. So I'll copy that, and I'll make another version of that by pasting it, and I'll say paste package from clipboard. And now it's given me a copy of that. Now I'm going to change the name of it now to be 2 levels. So I will just simply put that there, and I will say 2 inputs.
Now, some of the elements have the same name, but they're different elements. So how does Enterprise Architect deal with that?
A great question, Scott, as always. Yes, elements can have the same name, but they are not they don't have the same identity. So
Yep.
let's just pick one element. Say this spending score here, which is an input data score. If we go and look at the properties window, and if I look inside a couple of these things that are closed, we can see that we have a thing called a global unique identifier, and that is guaranteed pretty much within the bounds of the universe to always be distinct. And so that one, if you look at the ending, ends in F for Foxtrot 450 and then a bracket. Now, if I go and look at the other one in the level 1, the original one, you can see that is F for Foxtrot, but 304. So it's a different element. Yeah. So very well picked up. It is the same name, but a different element. So what I'm going to do now is look at this. I'm going to copy that. I just hit the F2 key there, Control copy, and I'm going to change the name of the diagram so there's no confusion either. So that's my level 2 input. I will put that below the other one because it's sort of slightly more advanced model or diagram. Let's open that one up and let's start doing some work. So I'll move some windows around a little bit, give myself some more space there. You notice that I've got the legend on the screen there that's coloring these things. So let's start making some room for some more input. What I'll do is I'll just move this one over a little bit there, and I'll move both these elements over to the left. I'm going to make room for another element. Notice that Enterprise Architect is keeping those grouped together.
Yep.
The first thing I want to do is I want to say, look, the business situation is that while spending is kind of good, I want to look at frequency as well. Like, how often do people book? Because someone could have a very expensive car park in a very prominent part of a tower in the middle of the city. They might have a high spend, but they're actually not booking very frequently. So the frequency of booking is important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply create another item definition. Now, I'd like to start with the item definition for reasons that I'll show in a minute. I'll just drag that one on and I'll call it frequency data. I multi-select and use my layout ribbon. The alignment panel makes same size, align their tops as well. So, EA is doing some work for us there. Yep. So now what we need to do is let's have a look at this one. When we went into our spending data one, we can see that we had spending data and it was a number. So let's have a look at our frequency data now. And the frequency data is not going to be a number. We're going to base it on, not on, an actual value, but maybe on an enumeration of, whether there's a high frequency, a medium frequency or not. So with that done, let's go and look at our frequency data definition now. And we can see here that we need to set this as a string.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll set it as a string. And those things are very easy for a business person to decide that, is it like a text, a string? Is it a number, a two-valued thing, a date? So we'll set it as a string, and you notice that then that will change there for us. We'll save that, and we'll now create an input item or input data that's for our frequency. So now we're going to say, okay, let's grab that input data, put it below that one there, and we'll say it's a frequency score. We'll again use our magic of the alignment ribbon, and we'll cancel that one, line these guys up center, and we're starting to look like a well-structured model. So I need to tell the decision that this is input data as well. So I simply click on this. Using the quick linker is the easiest thing to do. Drag and drop that relationship. I tend to go right inside the element, and EA will target the edge of the element, and it's an information requirement too. Yeah. So, that's a very useful thing. If people have watched the previous video, you'll know that there's something else that we need to do now, which is to associate the frequency score with that data.
The data,
And if you remember, Scott, the thing that we did, and I'll just show you on this spending data so we can be clear what's going on. What the item definition allows us to do is to set up some data sets that we can use in our what-if analysis. And remember, the big picture is that the business people are defining these decisions. They're putting in the rules and the information that's needed for the decision to be made. And then they're testing it. They're running scenarios, what-if scenarios, with the simulation ability of the tool to be able to look at what happens in a given set of circumstances. So if we look at this, we can go into this icon here on the DMN expression window, and it says edit data set. If we look at that, if people have watched the previous video, they'll recognize this. If they haven't, what we've done is we've set a number of different data sets. So we've said a low number, that they have a spending score of 12, median score, a default score, and we can look at all those different types, and we can add any that we want ourselves. So let's close that window and let's look at our frequency score here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that there are a number of, like an enumeration of values, if you like. So what we need to do with this is to set the item definition that it applies to. So with that done, let's go and look at this frequency score here, and we'll look at our urban parking system, our decision models. It's our 2-level input, and we're looking at the frequency data there. Go okay to that, and you can see now that we have that set up. Now I could have set these values in the item definition. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just do it slightly differently. We'll see how that works. So I'll say hi there as the value, and I'll save that. Clicking outside gives me that ability. Now we have 2 inputs now to our decision table. But if you've seen the previous video, and if we open up the decision table, let's have a look at what's going to happen inside our decision table.
We need a new column, don't we?
We do. We've got 1 input column, 1 output column, and 1 annotation column. And remember, in the annotation column, we didn't look at this in the previous video, but let's just put something in here for the moment and saying, you know, high value customer.
Yeah.
So so that we can put any notes in there that we want, and that's up to the business to decide what things might help other users understand the particular row. So we do need another column, and let's have a look at this now and say we need another input column. The little icons come to our benefit and are kind of quite obvious. That's another input column. Let's put that in there, and let's give it a name, and we'll call it frequency score.
Yep.
And you can see that it knows that before, so I didn't need to do all that work, but just showing you that it does pop down there. So I can type into the box, or I can just use that one. Now I need to set the type of this. Now if I don't, let's have a look what happens. I'll save that, and let's run our validation there, and got 0 warnings. But if we were to put some values in, we would see that we would have a problem with the frequency score here. So we need to set the column type on that, and let me just set that. Actually, it might have been set, so let me have a look at this one. Set as type there, the frequency score there, set as type, it's set as number, and we want it to be a string. Yeah. So now with the string, we've got the opportunity to put in some values here. We don't need to put, in this case, we don't need to put quotes around them: high, medium, and low. And there are values there. So now things get a little bit more interesting, Scott. I'm going to move this up out of the way and give us a bit more room with our decision table. Remember, if you have another monitor, I won't do that for the moment because it'll be out of your view. But let's have a look at putting some other rules in here. So what we need to do is to say, look, if someone's got a spending score of greater than 35 before we gave them a platinum membership. But let's not be quite so generous now. Let's say, look, they have to have a frequency score of high. So let me just type high in there, and you can see Enterprise Architect does the work. Simply select that, and then they're going to get platinum. But now I don't have any other rows to deal with the fact that they might have greater than or equal to 35, but be medium and low score.
Or medium, yeah.
So I'm going to enter another rule. So I'm going to add the rule, and you notice it pops up down there. And I'm just going to copy this text here and say, look, that's the text that I want. And this time I want it to be medium.
Yeah.
And I want them to be, in this case, I'm going to give them a gold membership, motorist membership. So choose the gold there. And I've got that rule set. I can now use my control key, holding my control key down and the up arrow on my keyboard. I wish you could see what I'm doing, but I think you get the picture. And I can move that rule up into place. Now, it would work perfectly even if I left that rule where it was, but it makes it much easier for people to read when the
order.
order.
A business person, they could scan it and read it, and it would make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Because even I can look at it and go, well, we got high, medium, but what about low? So yeah.
Yeah. So let's run a validation and see, what we're up to, and it's always good to do that. And we've got some warning there, warning decision table, tier violation, no rule exists for spending frequency score low. So
that's smart enough to figure it out.
Yeah, look, Scott, as I said, this is really one of my favorite parts of the tool, not only because I think that it's incredibly important that people, articulate these decisions in a formal way, but just because the tool does so much work and it's so easy to get going. Yes, there's some little things that you have to get used to in terms of the language, understanding the language, and we talked about the friendly enough expression languages as well. A few little things about the brackets and the square brackets and things, but it's doing lots of work for us. So let's put in another rule quickly, and we'll add another rule there. Let it do the work for us. We're going to choose that one there, and the value we want here, I think, is low. That was the missing one, and let's put that in, and let's give them a bronze membership, and we'll say okay to that. We have to save our work, and let's run the validation again. And you can see 0 errors and 0 warnings there. So what I'm going to do, Scott, is I'm going to get you to perform some of your time travel magic, and I'll finish off this table, and we'll see you back in a few seconds.
Welcome back. We've now completed our table for our decision modeling, and we've put a few different rows in. So I shall hand over to you, Stephen, and you can talk us through what it's like being able to run a simulation on a decision model when you've got multiple inputs. One happens to be a number or an integer, and the other happens to be a string of high, medium, and low, which is our frequency score. So over to you.
Thank you, Scott. Yes, here we are back again, having completed the decision table, and we have got a number of different rows. Now, we've added some rows, and to cater for the fact that we've got some more complex scenarios with the spending score being a particular value, and then the frequency score adding some dimension to those values. So if you recall, we had a spending score that was greater than or equal to 35, which was kind of our highest spending score. But then we decided to shape that a little bit by putting high, medium, and low into the frequency score, meaning that even if someone had a very good score of maybe 38 or 39, greater than 35, but they didn't book frequently, then we're going to give them a lower membership. The other thing that you may have noticed is that the scenarios that the business people have looked at this and thought, I need to actually put a a situation in where someone doesn't become a member? Like what's the situation when someone is not going to be given a membership? And, that's the last thing a customer really wants to hear, right? A motorist is going, look, thank you for your application, but, you don't qualify. But the useful thing about it is that this also gives the analyst or the person communicating that some information about, what kind of things that the motorist could do to get into a membership. So that's going to inform that decision. I wouldn't give them the table or describe it in detail, but just give them some ideas. Yeah. So it's a communication device. And as always, Scott, it's all about communication. It's all about creating a narrative, a story, and running these simulations through the model and coming up with some answers. So I've put in a non-member here. So I can easily do that. I've added to the list of values there, platinum, gold, silver, bronze, and non-member. And, when I go down here and I'm on this one here, I'll just delete that for a minute and I'll non-member, and you see that pops up there in the list. Yeah. So it's a non-member. And again, I'm using my annotation to say doesn't qualify for membership, to give people an understanding about what that's about. So regardless here of what the frequency score is, if they've got a value of 15 to 25, they'll get silver. But if they've got less than 15, no matter, even if they had high membership there, they wouldn't get a membership. So let's have a look at our data and how we've changed things. So we look at our item definition, and again, if I double click on this guy, save that decision model, and we can see here that we've got frequency data. It was a string, and if we go and look at the data sets, we can see that we've set a few values in here. The default is high. A frequent traveler gets a frequency data of high, an infrequent traveler gets a low value, and a moderate traveler gets medium. So we've got all those covered there, and they're the things that we can choose from when we're running our simulation. So let's do that. Let's have a look at our simulation. Remember, that's our simulation element there. We can double click on that, and that conveniently comes up in the in this simulation group of windows here. Expressions there, simulations there, the outputs there. And let's run our simulation with our defaults. Now I want to make this diagram in view so we can see what the outputs look like. We simply press the play button, and you can see that Enterprise Architect has annotated the diagram with the data input was 35 for the spending score and high for the frequency score, giving us a membership, platinum membership. So a very happy result for that particular motorist. Let's go and have a look at running our simulation again. Remember to stop the simulation first. And now we can use different data sets. So let's go the other way and let's say that they're an infrequent traveler, and their spending score is also a low number. And let's see what happens there. So we'll again press the simulation, and you can see the spending score of 12, frequency score of low, and they are a non-member. So unfortunately, we've got to inform the motorists that they don't make the cut for our platinum, gold, silver, or bronze membership. So again, we'll stop the simulation, run another one again, and say, look, they are actually a frequent traveler, but their spending score is, let's say it's a medium score here, and let's run that simulation, and they get a gold membership. So again, we've just shown the build-up of one more input. I wanted to do that rather than to get an extremely complex example. We do have examples in the example model that comes with Enterprise Architect that you can look at and run some of these simulations. And remember also there are patterns that you can inject into your models. But this is a case of two inputs into a single decision there. And let's just turn that off for a minute, and let's just go back and quickly revisit this. So this was a decision table. We've got a number of different types of decisions, and if we look over at the properties window in the expression type here, we've got decision table there. But we could have made it an invocation, a context, literal expression, list or relation. Topics for future videos, Scott. The other thing is that we talked about this being a hit policy here as well for the decision table. So this is within a decision table, you have got a number of different types or policies that you can put in to define it. These are defined in the specification as part of the decision table. So unique, any, priority, first, output order, rule order. So the traversal of the table can be different depending upon what kind of hit policy that you define. The unique one is kind of the simplest, but there is other ones that are quite useful. The first one, so the first rule that's come upon will fire. We've got rule order and a whole lot of other ones that are a little bit more complicated, but no need to talk about those. Again, Scott, I just want to reiterate that this is a diagram. This is a facility that's used by the business people, used by people that know about how the business makes decisions. And not only that, but they can run the simulations, do their what if analysis, make sure they get it right. If they end up with the wrong result and they don't want to reward a person that doesn't park very frequently and doesn't spend that much money, if they've got something wrong and they're coming up as a platinum membership, that's going to cost the organization money in different respects. So want to make sure you get it right. The other thing is it's not just for the business people, but it's also for the technology folk as well, because you can generate directly out of this model programming code that's beautifully and systematically, robustly written into a variety of different languages, and that can be injected directly into your technology stack. So as always, Scott, this is one of my favorite parts of the tool and one of my favorite languages.
Thanks, Stephen. It's great to see decision modeling with multiple inputs done in Enterprise Architect. I can see how powerful it is, and I'm just imagining that you could use it for, flight tiers and for rental car systems and for an infinite number of different possibilities. And the fact that it can generate code is pretty amazing too. So to our audience out there, if you've enjoyed today's video, please like, comment and subscribe to the Sparx Systems YouTube channel. We always like hearing from you, and it's great to get feedback on our videos. We love hearing from you. As always, if you've got any questions about decision modeling and how it might be used in an organization, you can reach out to Stephen via his credentials, his LinkedIn credentials that are listed in the description of the video below. And as always, Stephen, thank you very much for showing us how easy it is to develop a decision model in Enterprise Architect. It's been really great to see how easy it is and how powerful Enterprise Architect can be.
Thank you, Scott, and always delighted to be here. And remember, we've only just scratched the surface of the tool's potential.